Hi, everybody. Mitch Tanenbaum here. Thanks for joining me today. This is the security news update for this week. Under the security and privacy alerts, we have a couple. Google's Mandiant, that's their forensics and intelligence arm, is warning about North Korean fake IT workers. We've talked about that before. So that part is not new. But what is new is they're giving a lot more details about how the attack works and such. And they're saying it's affecting hundreds of companies. So don't assume that you're going to be left out. You may, but you may not. And even if you're left out of this particular attack, that doesn't mean next time you'll be left out. So certainly if you're hiring remote people and you do not physically see them face to face ever, you might want to revisit that, or you might want to figure out how you build your security controls around that to compensate for that. If you need help, obviously, please let us know. Also, the U.S. intelligence community is saying that Russia is pushing fake videos, particularly of Kamala Harris. They always have preference. In this case, I assume, but I don't know, that that they would prefer Trump to get reelected because he's weak on Russia and he lets them do whatever they want to do. Rumors are, don't know, that they have compromising material on him, which is why he lets them do that, even though he talks a big story about being rough on Putin. He doesn't seem to actually do that. They're the one piece of material that they Russia pushed out, was implicating Harris in a fake hit and run accident. Never happened. Another one is altering her speeches, and that's kind of happening all over the board at all levels of candidates. The goal is to incite chaos, and preferably to get somebody that they think is going to be easygoing on them elected. And apparently, right now, they think the target is Harris, because they don't think that's going to be as favorable to Russia as Trump would be to Russia. So this will continue to escalate until the election is in the rearview mirror. And next, cyber criminals are targeting the transportation sector. They understand where the weak spots are. I'll talk about this later, but rail and transportation are weak spots. Historically, they've been low tech, and they haven't worried about cybersecurity. They haven't worried about technology security. That's no longer the case. It's very technology intensive. We saw this with the Colonial Pipeline attack, where the computers didn't work. The terminals could not dispense fuel. So, and Proofpoint is seeing these attacks in the wild right now, and that's only going to get worse. Next, in the reference department, and this is for anybody that writes software, the FTC is fining a company called Do Not Pay $193,000 for telling consumers that they don't need no stinking lawyers and their AI can replace lawyers. It's not a problem. Unfortunately, the company has been saying that they can create valid legal documents without lawyers using their AI, but the FCC says that their software has not been trained on a comprehensive and current corpus of federal and state laws, regulations, and judicial decisions, or on the application of those laws to facts. So I think these guys came out smelling like a rose. All they need to do is change their advertising and write a check for $200,000, and they can go merrily about their business model. So the business model is not fundamentally flawed. What's fundamentally flawed, this is often the case, is that the marketers, the advertisers say, let's go take what the tech guys say and extend this to marketing hype. And the FTC says, maybe you don't want to do that. Under patches, one more time, we're seeing industrial IoT or SCADA or ICS, whatever you want to call it, attacks. In this case, it's Rockwell Automation, one of the big players, and it's affecting their RSS Logix 5 and 500 software, massively used throughout all kinds of industries, power and water plants, factories, warehouses. And that's the software made by Alan Bradley, owns Rockwell. And it could allow attackers to do remote code execution, which is not a great thing in your power plant or even your warehouse. In the legislative department, no big surprise here. The the UK is telling LinkedIn, aka Microsoft, same company, that massively using you and my data to train their AI without giving people the option to opt out and out notify people appropriately could cost them billions. Microsoft obviously is not interested in making a donation to the UK of billions of dollars, and so they said the UK said that LinkedIn has reflected on our concerns. Well, okay, reflected, huh? They looked at the checkbook and said, "Oh my God, this is a problem. I think we'll stop for now. Thank you very much." And that doesn't mean they won't resume, but I think there's got to be full disclosure and opt out and legitimate interest, all that stuff that GDPR requires. Under education, millions of vehicles, and this is not a surprise either, could be hacked. Cars might be smart, although I would argue that they're not terribly smart. The car makers, not so much. Again, they're used to making hard boxes, things that are on wheels, not making software. And now they've got a bunch of software, and that software is buggy as hell. In this particular case, all you needed was a Kia's license plate number to be able to hack a Kia. And while you couldn't bypass the immobilizer, there are a lot of Kia cars that don't have, early cars that don't have immobilizers. So those cars you could steal the car. Other cars you could just steal the stuff in the car. So both of those. But this is not a Kia problem. Acura, Genesis, Honda, Hyundai, Infiniti, Toyota, and others have all fallen victim to this. And it's because software has bugs. Under breaches, we have the Arkansas City water system. I love the euphemisms here. Switched over to manual control. They turned off the computers after a cybersecurity incident. And they say it is being resolved. They're being resolved by, this is a city of 11,000. So, they can have people work overtime and sit in the control room and manually control things at 3:00 in the morning or wherever and drive to remote pump stations, whatever they need to do. That is not practical in a large city. That only works in a city around 11,000 or a little bit bigger than that. And CISA then issued a warning after this attack came out, saying that because of all this stuff is exposed to the internet, I would say inappropriately, but for cost savings reasons, they're under attack. The water industry has been partnering with Republicans in Congress to kill regulations against the industry. I think partnering is a euphemism for feeding them large amounts of money. What they would prefer is that there was no regulation. A few more of these, maybe one that gets out of control, turns off the water. I don't think that they're going to be able to pull this off. I don't know. I'm not sure they'll be able to pull it off. Anyway, I think a lot of that depends on who gets elected in November. If Trump gets elected, then it's likely the regulations will decrease. If Harris gets elected, then it's likely the regulations will continue to move in the direction of moving or increase. Next, under breaches, MoneyGram, the money transfer service, says they're making progress in recovery from a cyber attack. Problem is that people who put money in one end of the tube expected it to come out the other end, and it didn't because they got hit by attack. Hopefully, the people saved their receipts. People are not necessarily great about that, but hopefully they save their receipts. So if the money doesn't come out the other end of the MoneyGram process at some point in time in the future, they can at least go back to MoneyGram and say, I want my money back, but that doesn't help them in the short term. And also in the breaches department, Dell is facing the third leak in about a week. All these seem to tie to one hack. And the hacker basically says that he's concerned that Dell is going to sweep this under the rug because that's what companies like to do. And he's trying to make sure that doesn't happen. Assuming there is personal data that was compromised as a result of this attack, they will have to disclose it. So we'll see what happens there. And it looks like the Twilio attack that we talked about last week, maybe they may be the victim of that attack. So we'll see what happens there. But nonetheless, a lot of data was exposed and not good for Dell. Next, third-party risk management. We have the Twilio attack as I just talked about, and also the Hezbollah attack. All of these are third-party risk management attacks, cyber attacks, cyber physical attacks, supply chain attacks, whatever you want to call it, that is the vector these days because it is the weak spot. And if you think that your supply chain is immune, I think you're being a bit optimistic. So, if you need help securing your supply chain, let us know. And as I said earlier, also, we know about water plants. I talked about Arkansas City just a minute ago, and healthcare, which we know about zillions of attacks there. But it's likely that railroads are going to join the crowd, and they're really kind of doing a bad job of security. So we'll see what happens there and how bad it gets, how ugly it gets. But when the trains shut down, that is not going to be fun, I promise. Speaking of attacks and scary attacks and critical infrastructure, the FAA is telling pilots to be ready to rely on old school navigation aids like radio and paper maps because the bad guys seem to be having fun jamming GPS systems. And I know the GPS systems that I was involved with building decades ago were very resistant to jamming. Commercial systems, not so much. There's not enough money there to make them jam resistant. So, they're saying, your GPS may show that you're over Cairo, Egypt, when you're really over Chicago. Not a good plan, and you need to kind of use alternate navigation aids, which is a real problem because most of the pilots these days, other than the old school pilots, aren't trained in it. They certainly don't have, updated paper maps. The VHF radio stations that were set up years ago that I used to fly with, they don't exist anymore in many cases. So that's going to get interesting, and I don't think that's going away anytime soon because GPSs are in the commercial space relatively easy to jam or spoof and give false data. And in the news bites, the White House is proposing, we'll see where this goes. There's going to be a long lawsuits if they do this, a ban on Chinese and Russian connected cars and connected software. This, of course, is pandering to the auto industry. It's a legitimate problem, but to do this 2 months before the election, clearly pandering to the auto industry and hoping that they'll get jobs as a result of that. Telegram has gotten apparently some religion after France threw its CEO in jail. And Metaverse joins the dumb club, fined $100 million for storing passwords unencrypted. Not a good plan. So unless you like writing checks for $100 million, don't do that. And another cyber physical attack here. Russia may be getting ready or planning for cutting the undersea fiber optic cables where like 95% of the internet traffic going between continents goes. And then industrial IoT is just an attack surface delight and not getting any simpler or cleaner anytime soon. So from that perspective, if you use IoT or industrial IoT, now would be a good time to look at your security practices. As always, if we can do anything to assist you, please let us know. And otherwise, until next time, stay safe and secure.